So the future is really hard to predict, but I'm going to try to do it today. But a few examples first of some interesting future predictions. So Robert Metcalfe, who was the inventor of Ethernet, said that in 1996 the internet will go spectacularly supernova and will have a catastrophic collapse. And in about the same time, Newsweek published that nobody would ever have want to use a computer online to replace their newspaper, and they also wouldn't use an online database to increase the efficiency of the government. Well, they got that one at least half right. And then finally, in 2007, Steve Ballmer of Microsoft said, and I'll do it in Steve Ballmer, and maybe this will get everybody in for this one. There's no chance that the iPhone will get any significant market share. That's my Steve Ballmer imitations for everybody that's seen Steve. So I'm actually probably not as loud as Steve, but I do want to talk a little bit about the future today. But first of all, I want to take you back a little bit in history to the past. I started as a web developer, and when I started doing web development, I was using Cold Fusion 1.0. It was the first server-side scripting language. Maybe some of you remember that. And it was just a few commands, no JavaScript. I was paying $3 a minute for the internet, and my first internet phone bill was $500. The internet was 28K at the time, and I was wondering if anybody could guess what year that was. So the crazy part about that is that was only 1995. So it has only been 18 years, really, since this whole data revolution began. And I think that what I want to do today is kind of set a trajectory for WebRTC, because I think that where WebRTC is right now in 2013 for communications, and I call it communications, and I think there's been a couple of other speakers that I saw today calling it communications instead of telecommunications, taking out the tele part. I think that where communications is with WebRTC right now is where we were with data in 1995. The data streams the barriers to entry finally were down, and you could finally connect to other people with data, and we saw an explosion of applications. I think we're going to see the same thing with WebRTC coming up. Let's talk about a few major trends, though, that I'm seeing that are kind of colliding, that are driving some of the change. First of all, the ubiquity of computers. Computers are everywhere now, and they're getting more pervasive in our lives from the schools to shopping experiences. And one of the places that I see that more and more is in digital signage. As I go home every day, I probably see 20 digital billboards now. And when you're walking through the conference halls, you see almost all the signage now is in digital. And I think it's really interesting how fast that is progressing. The other one is wearable computing. I think wearable computing and WebRTC are on a path to collide. I think I'm showing Google Glass there, and I tried to buy a Fitbit Force exercise monitor last week, but you can't even buy them. They're so sold out. They're sold out everywhere. Every Best Buy, I went to 3 Best Buys, and nobody has it. So this wearable computing phenomenon is really interesting, and I actually snuck in next door to printed electronics show because I'm kind of a geek that way, and they were talking about wearable clothing that you could touch and it would change based on sensors in your clothing. So I think that these type of applications where the internet is everywhere, and the last trend really, the next to the last trend, because I got a slide on the other trend, the next to the last trend is machine to machine and the internet of everything, because I think that wearable computing, having everything talk, and I put Nest up there as sort of the most well-known example of this. I think these are trends that are colliding, and WebRTC is sort of in the middle of that as this communication it can be this communication backbone, both through web infrastructure and that using those same type of technologies, once they're completely standardized, to start having all of these types of technologies connect together. The last one I want to talk about is virtual reality, and this is the Oculus Rift. I was actually at the Gartner Symposium a couple of weeks ago, actually about a month ago, and this was a great and interesting product. It was the first time I got to try it, although I've watched all the demos. If you haven't watched any of the demos, go watch it. There's a few clips on the internet where somebody's riding a roller coaster on the Oculus Rift, and it freaks them out. It freaks lots of people out. It's so realistic, and I think even more than Google Glass, I think this virtual reality technology, finally, the hardware is caught up with the software. And so we're going to see lots of new ways that people are going to want to communicate. And I think all these trends kind of point to WebRTC and communications in general being more at the forefront of how people are trying to figure out what they want to do in communication. So the major thing that I saw when I was at Gartner is an idea that really stuck with me, and that's the business moment. And I want to talk a little bit about the business moment because it leads in to where I think WebRTC is heading. So in the early 1900s, we really started the management culture, and businesses were the major thing that people were looking at. How do we optimize a business? In the 50s and 60s, we started looking at the business unit. How do we separate business units, finance, HR over here, and started looking at the business unit. And then I'm sure a lot of you were part of this, in the 80s and 90s, we started looking about business processes, cut across business units. How do we do handoffs and integrations and talk across the business processes? But Gartner talked about something that, because of these technologies and the colliding infrastructure changes and the ability for all of these new technologies to talk to each other, and that there's a need to really break business down even one more level, and that's into the business moment. And I think that WebRTC plays a lot into this. I want to talk about kind of a three-pronged view of how I see the future of WebRTC. The first is hyper-personalized. So I think that the key to hyper-personalization is that everybody's data is already close to everywhere. So your customers, consumers, and B2B know much more about you than they ever have before. So they can hyper-personalize the business moment to you. The second one is place. And I think that the key on place is it's not just physical place, but it's also virtual place. Are you in virtual reality? Are you on your phone? Are you at your office, at your desk? And we've seen that pick up more and more in the communication space, where we have to do mobile and desktop, and we have to have tablet. And I think WebRTC is definitely going to change that. And the last one is the moment. So it needs to be delivered in an instantaneous way that is right for that business moment, that is the right data at the right time in the right way. And I think it's a human communication problem. And I think that's one thing that I stress with WebRTC is that it's taking back for decades now, we've been talking and communicating on a one-to-many. Advertising, print, TV, radio, and then the internet even one-to-many, although there's been many one-to-one type of scenarios. But I think that what WebRTC does is it changes the paradigm and moves it really farther and farther towards one-to-one. So I call this human contextual moment, and I think this really is the future of WebRTC. Human personalized, contextual, what place are you in, moment in the business moment. So this human contextual moment, I think, really is the key to the future of WebRTC. I want to go a little bit back to 1995 again, just so that we can think about what the future looks like from the past. Because really, humans have a hard time with exponential change. In the last 18 years, we've been heading up the curve of exponential change. But humans really view change in a linear way. We live our lives linearly. I don't know if anybody who has exponential time. I don't. So we live our lives linearly, and I think that what it means is that we really have a problem dealing with exponential change. And I think because exponential change, especially once it starts up the steep part of the curve, which we're in on the internet now, and we're seeing change at an increasing pace, I think that that's something that we really have a hard time with. So I want to take you back to 1995, and let's think about the web looked like a bunch of links. I had a few of those pictures up before. Yahoo was the #1 page on the internet. It was just a collection of links. People thought of the web as a hyperlinked set of pages, hypertext marking language. So everybody created a page of links, created their document brochure, again, on the internet with links to it and to other people that they knew, and it was just a big ball of links. We didn't think about how, there certainly wasn't any thinking about eBay or Amazon when it first started, and then there certainly wasn't any thinking about social, like LinkedIn or Twitter or Facebook, and absolutely there was no thinking about how do we have applications in this new world, like Salesforce or Workday. We use Workday, and it's a full app right in the browser. So I think that we're in the same place with WebRTC. I think the type of applications that we're talking about now, which are the ones that we can see, are those link farms that are easy to see. It's changing customer support to have a one-on-one. It's browser-based one-on-one communication. But what we can't see is those next applications, the things that come after this. We've been thinking a lot about it at Genband, and I'll show some of our products, but first I want to show a demo of one thing that we've done. We've created a site for an personalized shopping experience, and this is the first page of that. We had a demo up and running at the show, but these are quick screenshots since we had limited time. And so what this is, Toy Genius is a small specialty toy store owned by a friend of ours. And they were kind enough, a company named X Factor, who's a partner of ours, was kind enough to help us build this demonstration of what this expanded shopping could look like. And so you come to the Toy Genius site, and you click on the left side, enter our virtual VIP shopping experience. And it gives you two options. It gives you an option to click here, which would be the all IP option, which is what I'm going to show you. But what's cool about it is it also gives you an option to type in your phone number, and it'll do a callback to you through the traditional telecommunications infrastructure. So when you then click on that upper button, what you get is the WebRTC asking you for permission to allow camera and audio access. And when you allow that, then it goes to the next page where it says connecting to a toy tech. So that's the front end side of what it looks like from the user perspective. So let me then go to what it looks like from the tech side. So once that button's pressed, then the tech says there's an incoming call. And what's interesting about this, based on we can do that, so we're doing it based on where they are, in their correct place. But what's cool is we could contextualize it. So we could actually send them to the right rep based on which toys they purchased previously, or which ones they browsed, or which ones they have in their cart. Maybe we could send them to a specific expert. We aren't quite that advanced yet, so it just rings on the other side right now. So the tech picks it up and answers, and they see this screen, which is really interesting. This screen is kind of the special sauce of the whole application. What this screen is what the tech is in the upper, can see the user if they've shown their webcam. And then what the tech can do then is look at the toys that the person's browsed or are in their cart already, and they can move and suggest toys and put them into their basket and show them toys on the data channel and screen pops. So I think this is really the cool kind of thing. So then the person sees at the top what's in their recently viewed, and on the right-hand side, you can see the tech on the left-hand side, and we didn't have this screenshot, but on the right-hand side, he can show the toys, new toys, to the user. So this type of interaction, and the same type of interaction could happen if he calls, the person is called, and they're on the phone, then he can actually, then through that same WebRTC interaction, screen pop new toys to them and fill up the cart with new toys, and actually even help the person translate. And I had on that upper slide, the Amazon Mayday. I think that what's cool about this is that this is the type of technology, and the barriers of entry have lowered to the point where anyone now could do this, just like in 1995 with the web. Anybody can now build communication applications, and it really is limitless on the type of communications that we're going to have in the stream of our applications. So we see things like scanning a QR code and getting a rep up to talk to them about what you have. Using your camera to point to your, let's say you're trying to change out the memory in your computer and you're not geeky as most of us are. So you could point to your motherboard slot and the rep at Newegg could then say, oh, this is the type of memory that you need. You could just actually show them what you're looking at using your webcam. So these are types of applications I think that are going to be, I just think that the world is open, and 18 years in exponential time is a lot of time. So what is Genband doing to get us to this next level of future interactivity? First, I'd like to show you a quick video, and then we'll talk a little bit about the technology that we have.
Today, we have more communications options than ever before, but they don't always connect with each other. What was once a simple phone call has expanded to include instant and multimedia messaging, presence information, social media chat, and over-the-top services like video and HD voice. Genband weaves together today's telecom networks with a web-based multimedia experience. Introducing Genband Spider, a WebRTC gateway which revolutionizes how we communicate. By leveraging the new WebRTC HTML5 standards, Genband is offering network operators and enterprises new service opportunities on top of their existing networks. With Spider, all you have to do is select who and how. Spider takes care of the rest. You can reach anyone at any time from any network. Spider unleashes new revenue for operators by enabling enhanced services and extending their reach. Genband Spider spins the web into a smarter communications experience and a more meaningful connection with the telecom world. Just another way that Genband is making networks smarter.
So that's a cool video, and I want to get a little bit into the technology. It's definitely a marketing piece. I'm in marketing now. I forgot to tell you how I got here. So like, why is this geeky Code Fusion developer guy up here as the marketing guy? So I actually took a pretty circuitous route to getting there. I actually went through being an entrepreneur, as we talked a little bit about, and being a CIO. I ran sales for a little bit, and then I ended up in marketing. But I think that marketing technology and how we, I'm actually looking at WebRTC a lot, and how it actually can help marketing, because I think marketing is really the place where businesses communicate, and we're going to see a lot about that. But here is a little bit more details on how we're going to unlock these new business opportunities in this human, contextual moment that we talked about. The WebRTC gateway is the Spider WebRTC gateway is a way to connect the old telecom protocols and architectures to WebRTC. So first of all, it's software-based. It is able to be put on standard hardware, so we actually have it in our cloud, and we can put it on-prem or in a cloud-prem combination. But it also has great carrier-grade quality of service and capabilities so that you can build your WebRTC on a very stout structural backend. Some of the really interesting things that we have in it is that we have the ability for the WebRTC to connect to new RESTful APIs that we have extrapolated the existing telco interfaces through. So those include user identity and call setup and management, access to the data and the call layers and being able to merge and move those together, messaging and presence. Presence is a big one. We'll talk a little bit about presence. And over-the-top adaptability and the ability to connect to over-the-top. Genband just bought Fring, which is a consumer over-the-top voice application which competes with Skype. And Fring was actually taking their offering into carriers, and we're going to be integrating Fring into WebRTC also as part of this offering. But what's cool about this is that then you could federate some of these things together. You could federate existing messaging through your single telephone number. You can have telephone number callbacks, like we saw there. You can federate social media, because we have a social media federation piece to that. And you can get true telecom call-through services, just like you can when you pick up your phone. So you can do things like directory services, you can do web sharing with call-throughs from traditional telephone lines. So there's all the type of telephone in a normal unified communication suite that we have in our Experience platform, we've pulled through in the Spider platform. So I think this is a real interesting play, and we're seeing super interest from it from our telecommunications carriers. We think that it is going to be something that kind of bridges the gap and allows companies to move to that next layer for WebRTC. So I'm going to close with just a couple of things. First of all, I want to talk a little bit about how I talk about WebRTC. So when I talk to people, like I met somebody on the plane today, and I explained to them, what is WebRTC? I think it's a hard technology to explain, so I'm going to give everybody in the room my kind of cheat sheet of how I explain it. I say, do you remember when you went to YouTube and you had to load Adobe Flash, and every time you went into YouTube, it told you needed to upgrade Flash? Well, that doesn't happen anymore because they put video inside of the browser into HTML5. I don't say that part. But I think it's important that that standardization is really the secret sauce of the WebRTC. So I think that when you talk about it and you say, then you don't have to, when that happened, then video was everywhere. It was on ESPN. Netflix was able to do what they did. Once we put HTML5 and we standardized HTML5 video, then video proliferated on the web because the barrier of entry was so much lower. So I tell people that same type of thing is going to happen for video and voice chat and text chat and messaging and screen collaboration and the data channel in real time, so that we can have real-time gaming and other things that we just couldn't do before. So I think that what we've done is we've kind of seen WebRTC as this call center enabler or peer-to-peer ability for people to talk to each other, but it's going to be so much bigger as we start to figure out these technologies. So I think it's important for you to explain to people when you talk to them that that's how it's going to, that is where we see WebRTC going. And I do think that the future of WebRTC is human contextual moments. So I think that it's important for us to start thinking about how we build communications into the stream of applications. How do we build communications into that business moment? And I've really enjoyed talking to you today. I think there's three ways to continue this conversation with me today. The first is you can follow me on Twitter. I am continually talking about WebRTC, marketing technology. If any of those if you like any of those things, follow me on Twitter. I also have an interesting blog where I talk about these things, and those things show up on Twitter too. It's CIO to CMO. And then finally, at go.genband.com/WebRTC, Ken Workin, who is our super duper smart WebRTC guy who's been in several sessions, you may have seen him. Ken did a great WebRTC webinar where we talked much more about the details of Spider, what we're doing, how it affects both the enterprise and the telecommunications carriers. And Ken, we've shared that on the web at this address. So with that, I would like to tell everybody thank you, and I really do appreciate you letting me talk today. Thanks.